What is good, you guys? It's Lifestyle from lifestyledid.com, and in today's video we are back again with the series of fixing a subscriber's mix. In today's video I have a really cool beat and the mix came out amazing. The beat first off was just really good, so it immediately caught my attention. The only thing that I really saw was there's a bit of muddiness. I wanted the guitar to stand out more and the drums to hit. The 808 and kick were kind of clashing into each other, and the 808 had a lot of wobble going on the low end, and it needed to be controlled so that kick can really punch through. So today we're going to do it a little bit different. Right when I heard this, I immediately just wanted to mix it. So I have already mixed the beat. I'm going to show you before and after, and then we're going to dive in and kind of take apart the mix, and I'm really going to explain what I did to get this mix to sound how it sounds. So like I said, here's the before. Alright, so on the master, I went ahead and took off what I used to get the loudness, which was a soft clipper. I didn't want to limit this mix because I really wanted that kick to punch, so I went ahead and used a soft clipper, but we have all of this disabled. Now, what I want to do is really show you the mix before processing with just leveling. So I'm going to go ahead and disable all effects, show you the mix, and then I'm going to enable all the effects and show you the mix. Okay, so now let's dive in. So obviously you could hear that before we had the effects, the mix was sounding good. But when we cut those effects on, it really changed the mix and it sounds so much better. You see a lot of that muddiness get taken out and the punch come in and the clarity come in so clear. So I'm going to break down exactly what I did, and we're going to start with the drums. All right, so I want to go back to the mix with no effects, and I really just want to show you and speak about the leveling a bit. So what I'm first going to do is take out every lead instrument, pad, piano, guitar that's in here, and I'm just going to play the drums. So like I said, no effects. This is literally just leveling. I still have headroom. You always want to have headroom. I have about 9 dB of headroom, but the mix is already hitting, right? Now let's bring everything else in. So you see the guitar is still pretty loud, but the drums are still hitting over. So when I went to level this, the first thing I did was obviously throw my kick and 808 in mono, and the 808 actually did need to be thrown in mono this time because it did have side information that I didn't like, and it was wobbling a little bit more to the left. I wanted it to be straight down the middle. But you'll see when I go ahead and play these that the drums are still hitting with no effects. So the main thing about a mix that you need to do and get right is the leveling. Leveling and gain staging are 90% of a mix. Some people even say like 99% of a mix, and then EQ, compression, saturation, all that good stuff, reverb is additional spice to really make it stand out. But literally the meat and potatoes of mixing are in your leveling and gain staging. So let's go ahead and let's bring the effects back on. All right, so the first thing I want to speak about is what I did with the kick and 808. All right, so a quick cool trick: hold control and right click on the effects tab of the desired mixer track, and it will bring up your entire plugin list that we used for this kick. So you'll see this is what I did with the kick. I went over here and I took out a little bit under 30 hertz. I gave it a bit of a boost around 600 because I needed a little bit more bite out of the kick, and then I threw the Fruity Peak controller on it so that the 808 could be triggered and duck. So what that means pretty much is if you throw Peak controller on, all you need to do is throw it on. You've seen this in many tutorials, but I'll explain it for anyone else that's new. So we just throw Peak controller on, we go over to the 808. So on the 808 we have decapitator adding a bit of saturation, but what we really want to focus is this EQ. So over here you will see when the kick plays, it's doing an automated sidechain for me with a specific frequency on the EQ. So to set that up, all you need to do is on the kick, put Peak controller on. Then you go over to the parametric EQ. We have our band, and we have about 48 hertz is where we want it to be triggering. And all we do is right click right here. We go to link to controller, and then switch this to peak, change input to inverted, and then change this to 0.5, right? And once we hit accept, it'll start moving out the way. I have a lot of videos covering this, but I always like to show to anyone that hasn't seen it yet. And then on the peak controller, which is on the kick, we have our volume and we have our decay, and we can adjust how fast we want this to move or how slow we want this to move. So I had it set around here, and I have it just pushing out probably about 5 dB. So that pushes that out the way, right? So once we have these two running, we go over here to the clap. Let's bring in the rest of the drums, and I'm kind of just going to go a little bit quicker and show you guys what I did for this setup. Okay, so let's focus on this clap real quick. I'm going to show you without the effects. It's very thin. So what I did for the clap to make it a bit thicker is actually put halftime on it. So let me show you what that sounds like. So if we have halftime up all the way, we put it so a quarter note, right? It's slowing it down. But what I like to do with that slowed down version is actually blend it back in, and it will layer under a thicker version of that clap. So I probably had it somewhere around here. I'm not sure, but let me turn it on and off. We can add more to it, but I just wanted that, and it was perfect for me. It wasn't too much, and it wasn't too little. So that added a little bit of body to it, right? And then I have an EQ on it, which boosts a pretty big amount around that 250 to 300 range. And I did a little bit of a high boost around 15K to really give it that snap. And you can hear what that does. Really brings out a lot of body and makes it sound really good. So let's keep going. Let's go over to the open hi-hat. I cut out a little bit of low end, a tiny bit of top end, and then I threw H delay on it, and it's doing a quarter note. So you can hear that sounds like this. And you can't really hear that too much in the beat, but it really stands out and kind of adds a little bit of width to the mix. It's small things like that that really make a mix sound good. Next thing we're going to show is the hi-hat. So the hi-hat, I cut out a lot of this low end that I didn't want. I wanted to thin it out a little bit, and then I did just a small boost. And then on the crash, I cut out some of the low end. I still wanted the crash to sound kind of thick. And then you'll see this ginormous boost that I did at 2K. And for some people, that might look crazy. It sounded good to me. I wanted to leave it, and that's the tone I was going for. So let me show you what this sounds like before and after. So here's before. It just gets a lot thicker. It has a lot more punch, and it really adds to the drums. And then I threw a reverb on it, and it's just kind of spacing out the crash so it doesn't have a short decay. I kind of wanted to have a long decay and fit the tone of the beat. So that was pretty much the drums. Now let's go over here to our main instruments, which is the guitar, the pad, and the piano. And I'm going to show you what these sound like with all the effects off first. All right, so let's kind of go over what I did. So if we take all the effects off, we just listen to what's going on. Everything's kind of merged, right? It's kind of pushed in the middle, and there's a lot of buildup happening between frequencies that a lot of these are sharing. And that's a lot of the frequencies that we hear around the 400 range. And then we have a little bit of buildup in the super low end around 200 and lower. So what I did for this is the first thing, I went to this guitar and I attacked it. You'll see the first thing I did was cut out a tiny bit of this low end around 79 hertz. I gave it a nice shelf boost and a bell boost in the high mids and the top end. And then the next thing I did was throw reverb on it, and I cut out a lot of the high end from the reverb and a bit of the low end. So let me just play this as I speak, and we'll turn these on and off. So this just gave it some more space. The next thing I did was throw a delay on it, and I went with a 16-note delay, a kind of a quicker delay, and I wanted it to kind of just bounce around the ears a tiny bit, but you wouldn't hear it too much, and it kind of just widened it out. So let's hear that. And then lastly, I put S1 on it, and I pushed the stereo image just a tiny bit. If I reset this, you'll see I didn't go too far. I just wanted to push it a little bit. All right, so next let's bring in this pad. And let me turn this off. Let me show you these two together. So you'll see when it's on, it blends a lot better with the guitar. So the issue that I was having with this pad was this frequency range around 300, about 350. It was building up a lot, and it was clashing with the guitar. So I cut out a little bit of low end with the shelf. I do like to do low cuts a lot, but I love shelving because it doesn't really cut off too aggressively, and it keeps a little bit of that low end. So shelving for me is always go-to, but low cuts are always amazing. So I did a low shelf. I did a big cut around 350. Then you'll see I have a small bell boost around 3K, and then a high shelf around 2. So first was the high shelf, and then I went in around 3K, and I added just a little bit because it added a bit of tone to the pad and kind of made it stick through a little bit. Because I cut out that 400 range, I wanted it to shine somewhere else to fit the guitar, because the pad could sound good by itself, right? And that 350 to 400 range could sound really good, but when it's blended with a bunch of different instruments, sometimes if they're clashing, you have to sacrifice certain parts of that to get them to work well together, right? So I went ahead and I found out that the pad had some good tones around a 3K. I cut out around the 350 range to blend in with guitar, and it worked out perfectly. So the next thing we have over here is this O vocal. Small shelf, cutting out some low end, did a big boost to get the O to kind of stand out. I put a chorus on it, so let's go ahead and solo this. Here's what it sounds like before. After. So all together on the chorus, I'll show you the preset I used. I went ahead and just chose a preset, didn't want to dive too much into it, just kind of wanted a chorus vibe to it. And then S1 to widen it out and kind of section it a little bit to the left and then to the right. If you have S1, it can get crazy. You can mess with all different types of rotation and width, so you can get real creative with it and make it sound cool. So now all of these together sound like this. And then last but not least was this piano that comes in and out at certain parts. So here's one part with the piano, and for the piano, all I did was cut out a tiny bit of the low end, and then again around 360, it had a lot of buildup too that was clashing with that guitar. So here's how all these sound together. And then for the pad and the piano, I used a bit of the normal FL stereo widening and then widen them out like that. Now let's listen to the whole mix. And then for the master, all I did was cut out under 20 hertz and everything below that. I did a tiny shelf around 6K and up, just a small one. It sounded good. And then I went ahead and boosted the volume into the soft clipper. Like I said, I didn't want to limit this track because I wanted the kick to really stand out. This clipper and a few other clippers sound really good when you push kicks into them. So you can either choose to limit or clip your master. It's up to you. I decided to use a clipper for this because it sounded good. So all I did was push my volume into it. I'm doing about 3 to 4 dB of gain reduction into the clipper. I'm still staying under 0 and our mix sounds good. And for anyone that's interested in the final true peak and the LUFS of this track, here it is. So I could get away with pushing it a little bit more, but I really don't want a lot of distortion and artifacts to happen, especially with that kick. I like how this sounded, and it's really loud, so that's perfectly fine. We stayed under 0, -0.2, -0.3, which is perfect, and the mix sounds really good. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. If you do like this series, make sure to drop a comment down below and a thumbs up. I really love this series because I love mixing engineering, is my main background, and I like to share it with you guys. If you want to be featured in one of these videos, make sure to put push notifications on for my channel, because I will go live and ask people to send their beats in to be mixed, and I randomly choose one. Now, if you want your beat to get mixed by me, go ahead and in the description you will see Get Your Beats Mixed. There will be a link right there. You can check it out and you can have me mix your beats. As always, subscribe to your boy, push notifications. Thanks.